Hey everybody, Mr. Bosco here. Hey, it's time we talk about viruses. They're extremely important these days. You're hearing about them in the news and they're staying at home and you're told it's because of a virus. Well, what the heck is a virus, right? So today we're going to talk the science behind what a virus is, what they do, and how they do what they do, how they do their work, which leads to making us sick and sometimes worse, right? So let's talk about the science behind viruses. I'm going to be pretty quick here because I don't want to take a whole lot of your time, but I want you to pay attention. This will help you stay safe and be healthy. And it will also help you help your family be safe and be healthy. Okay? All right. So let's see. First thing, let's talk about what a virus is. All right? So I'll be moving my screen up and down here. Bear with me there. So what is a virus? First off, what is a virus, right? I'm going to write messy here, but that's what it is. What is a virus? First off, a virus is not, underline, it is not alive. Some people think it's alive. It's not alive. Um, it reproduces, just like living things do, reproduce, make more of themselves. But it's missing some of the key factors that make something alive. We will talk about that when we get to living things and life science. But for now, it's not alive. Okay, it's kind of like what we might call a parasite. Parasite. You might have heard of parasites, but like a tick. I don't know if you've ever gotten a tick on you when you've been walking around out in the desert somewhere and the ticks suck your blood, right? A mosquito lands on you and sucks your blood. Those are what we call parasites. Parasites need other things to help them function or live if it's a living thing, like a mosquito or a tick. But in the case of a virus, it needs what's called a host. I'm going to write that down. A host. We call them hosts. It needs a host to live. So it needs another living thing, a host, not to live, to function. Okay? If it doesn't have anything, a living thing that it uses to help it function, it will disappear. That's important. So it needs a host. And I'm going to explain how that works, okay? We're going to talk about viruses. First off, viruses that affect humans don't often always infect other things. It won't affect a tree, but trees have viruses that may not affect humans. In this case, in the case of coronavirus originated in bats. The flying creatures in the night that aren't really as scary as we've made them over the years, but bats were affected by this coronavirus. And then the coronavirus evolved. It changed so that it can affect humans. Huh. So, unfortunately for us, now it affects humans. And we're really finding out that it's a pretty hardy virus. Okay, so let's find out what these things are. And this virus, in fact, I'm going to start, every once in a while, I'm going to start, I'll start talking about the coronavirus because it's a form of virus. It's one of the viruses that's out there, like a flu virus. The flu virus affects us. It's not the coronavirus. The cold virus affects us. It's not the flu virus, nor is it the coronavirus. There's different viruses that affect us, and they affect us differently, but they need us to be able to function. Okay. So, let's see. Oh, well, let's just put here coronavirus. You don't have to take notes. Do not take notes. I don't want you to take notes. Oh, Let's try this again. Coronavirus. Coronavirus needs a human to function. Okay? Oh boy. Oh boy. We're going to have to fix this. I had it right the first time, didn't I? To function. So the coronavirus needs a human to function. Now let's get to some pictures because these words, a lot of words coming out. Let's find out, what do these viruses look like? All right. Have you ever seen TV or movie clips of of when we landed on the moon, a lunar lander that the astronauts were in when they landed on the moon? Well, it's funny. Viruses look a lot like those. A virus, it has a capsule, which is basically, like a lunar lander. And they have high-powered microscopes now that can see these things, and they actually have legs that come out that it can stand on, and that's called a capsule. Capsule. You've taken medicine. You've taken medicine before. Medicine usually in a capsule, in a little, looks like a piece of plastic, but it's not. It's something that goes in your body, and a capsule is something that carries something. Okay, so you put the pill in your mouth, you swallow it, the capsule breaks open, releases the medicine, you get better, right? So viruses have a capsule, something covering them and protecting them. The thing it's protecting, and this is kind of interesting, it's extremely interesting, in fact, inside that capsule, I'll make it orange. Inside that capsule is DNA. DNA. You've seen pictures of DNA probably. It looks like this, and there's a lot of it. It could be DNA or, well, let me write it out here. DNA. It could be DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. So it's a molecule. We've been talking about molecules. It's a molecule that tells humans, actually any living thing, it's like the instructions for making it. So in your cell, in your body, you have these things called cells, which you're going to get into. In those cells is DNA. Inside that DNA are the instructions for making you exactly who you are. So that's pretty interesting. So your body has DNA. All your cells have DNA. You have 37.2 quintillion trillion. 37.2 trillion cells in your body. That's a lot of cells. Every single one of those cells has a blueprint for making you, exactly you. I have 37 trillion cells in me, and those have DNA that has the instructions for making me. Has my hairline. It tells me how to make that beautiful hairline I have. It tells me to have blue eyes. Tells me what I'm going to look like. All right. So inside there's DNA, so inside these capsules is DNA or RNA. Okay. It's not the DNA that makes humans. What's in the DNA that's in these capsules for viruses are DNA that are the instructions for making that virus. That's important to know. So this DNA right here that's in here is the instructions for making that virus, the coronavirus. Okay? Keep that in mind. You're going to need to know that. So that's what a virus is. That's what a virus is. So what's the next thing we wanted to look at here? Whoa, we are going to look at, okay, what do they do? What does a virus do? So what does, I don't like the word it, but I'm saving time here. What does it do? So what does it do? Why are they bad? We're going to lead to why are they bad. So what does a virus do? To know what a virus does, we got to have a little bit of understanding about cells. The cells that are in your body, that are in any living thing. Trees have cells. Bacteria have a cell. Mushrooms have cells. Humans have cells. Your dog has cells. Your little sister, little brothers, they even have cells. Okay? Everything that's alive has cells. So cells are basically, I'm going to make them big. They're super small. You can only see them under a microscope. And we can probably take a look at some of those this year. So the first thing we have to do is understand what a cell is. So here, I'm going to draw a picture. Let me draw white on the outside. So this is huge. This is like magnified a bazillion times. Okay, they're very small. So this on the outside here is what's called a membrane. All right, a membrane. It's just, think of it as a Ziploc bag, a plastic bag you seal up. Okay, plastic bag. That's kind of what they're like. The plastic bag is the membrane. It coats it. Okay, it covers it. It protects it. It completely surrounds the cell. Inside the cell is this gooey liquid. It's called cytoplasm. We don't need to worry about that. We'll get to that later. But there's a gooey liquid inside the membrane. All right. Within there, I'm going to make it red. There's a very important piece, and it looks like it's circular. Well, it's kind of like a sphere. It's called the nucleus. Nucleus. Most important part of the cell. This is like, it's extra protected in our cells. It also has a membrane surrounding it. Okay. And the reason it's so protected, it has inside of it our DNA. Very important chemical in our bodies, in any living thing. Anything living thing that has cells has a nucleus. Well, let's be careful. Any living thing that has cells has DNA. In like humans and dogs and trees, it's going to have a nucleus around it. The nucleus protects it. Okay? So remember, we have DNA in our cells. We have this nucleus that protects it. We have these things inside the cell that are like machines. They do work. Okay? I'm going to only tell you about a couple of them. One of them, I'll make in blue. They look like little beans in here. These are important, and they're not really important for what I'm talking about now, but actually they are. Let me say that. These are called mitochondria. All right, don't worry about the words. We'll get to those later. Mitochondria. Mitochondrion is really what they're, but we'll say mitochondria. These are mitochondria, okay? And what they do is they provide energy for the cell. And I can't spell today. Energy. They produce energy for the cell. Everything that goes on inside the cell needs energy to make it happen. When you get tired, it's because these mitochondria are busy making energy, and they haven't got it. Your cells are really running out of steam. They're running out of they just don't have any energy. Let's say that. Okay. And the mitochondria are producing it for it. But that's when you have to eat, you eat so that you can give these mitochondria something to produce energy with. That's one thing. Okay. Another important machine that's in the cell is, and I'll make these, let's make these, I'll pick this. I don't care. So we'll just make these little circles. All right. These are machines. They are important machines, especially for what viruses do. These are called ribosomes. Ribosomes. Now, again, don't worry about what they're called. Don't worry about the name. But, you'll hear me say ribosomes. Ribosomes, they make important chemicals for living. All right? They make a whole bunch of things for the inside the cell, and they help you live. Okay? Just think of them as important chemicals. Okay? That's what they do. And what they do is that let me put a little line over here. They use DNA. They use the stuff that's in the cell. Remember, it's instructions for making you. So they use the instructions that are in the DNA to make something for your body to live. They use the instructions from the DNA to make something for you to live. All right? Ribosomes are extremely important for what these viruses do. All right. So cell, that's cells. We're going to come back to these. Okay? Every cell in your body, 37 trillion cells in your body have these in there. And that's what they do. Okay? So the next thing was, what was the next thing we were going to look at? How do they work? All right. So how does a virus work? How does a virus work? This is where I'm gonna talk about this using pictures. I got to make this. Oh boy, sorry. Let's make this a little smaller. It got shrunk, and we're gonna go back to our. How do they work? Remember that. That's what we're talking about. How does a virus work? So let me scroll back up there. So let's go back up here. Remember, they look like little lunar landers. They're super small. You think a cell is small. We have 37 trillion cells in our body. Well, you can't see them because they're microscopic. These viruses are even smaller because those lunar landers, remember, coronavirus is floating around in little particles, little water particles in the air. And then you breathe them into your nose, It gets in your nose and it's going to go to work on your cells. If you go around and you touch something on a table, you put your finger on it, and somebody else coughed and their spit came out of their mouth and landed there, and you grabbed something, say, I don't know, a doorknob that somebody else has touched and that had the virus on them, and you get the virus on your hand and you touch your eye, you touch your nose, you touch your mouth, you just introduce one of these viruses into your body. And these viruses produce many more of them, many more of themselves. And here's how they do it. So you've just touched the doorknob, you put it in your mouth, and now you have a virus, or touched your nose or your eyeball, and it gets into your body. And what it's going to do is it's going to go find your cells. And it's going to get in your body, and it's going to go, oh, look, I'm going to land right here on a cell. I'm just going to make it look like that. It looks like a TV. I don't want to do that. Let's go. Now it looks like a house. Okay, anyway, it lands on a cell. And remember, it has its own DNA in here, all right? It has its own DNA, or it might be RNA. We don't have to worry about what it is. It has its own DNA and RNA in here. On a cell, remember, it's got a membrane. A cell has a membrane, right? On those membranes are little doors all around it. Because, when you eat, parts of the molecules from your food need to get inside the cell so the cell can do stuff with it. It can make energy. It can make other things like what are called proteins. That's one of the main things of a cell. It allows things in and out of the cell. So some things can get out, okay? But the cell controls what comes in and what goes out. The cell controls it. These little doorways are like the doorway to your house. You have a key. The key, you only have a key. Your parents have a key, lets you into the door. Nobody else has that key, right? Same thing with cells. Certain things have keys to get in and out, all right? And something about these viruses, you might be thinking, well, let me just tell you, the virus has to get inside this cell. It needs to get inside. It needs, basically, what it needs to get is its DNA inside the cell. So how's it going to get it inside the cell if it doesn't have a key, right? Well, evolution's this amazing thing that organisms go through over time. We're not even going to have time to cover that. But organisms go through evolution. So do viruses. Viruses are able to change. And as they change, they have a secret little, they have keys. And they go around, they try to unlock doors to, like, this virus has tried to unlock doors to plants, to your dog. It probably sniffed it in there and it tried to get open the cell, couldn't get it open the cell, probably went into, some other things, finally makes it into a human body, and it tries that key, and all of a sudden, click, the key works. Because over time, that key has changed to actually work in a human. So it gets up to this one of these doorways, and it puts the key in there, and it's like, oop, the door opened. There's a lot more involved in that, but basically that's kind of what it is. It has a key to get into that door, and what it does now is it takes its DNA that's right here, and it puts it into the cell. Now, all this DNA, RNA, whatever you want to call it, let's say DNA, is in the cell. It just dumped it all in there. What was that DNA for again? Remember what that DNA was? Remember what that DNA was for? DNA is the instructions for making whatever has that DNA. Our DNA makes us. The virus DNA makes more of it. So when it gets in here, these ribosomes right here, these ribosomes, their job is to make things using the instructions from the DNA, right? So the ribosomes are going to find this, and they're going to make more pieces that can let me do this. Let me do a different color. What color did I do? Right here. They're going to make the pieces needed to make more viruses. And these viruses, or these pieces, will start coming together, and they're going to make more viruses. So these ribosomes are going to come over here, and they're going to get on there, and they're going to make more. And this one's going to, and then it's going to find another one. It's going to make more. It's going to make another virus. And then one of these ones will find this one. It's going to make more. This is going to happen over and over and over and over and over again. And there's going to be probably, I don't know how many, hundreds of these little viruses being made inside one of your little cells. One. And then what's going to happen is they are going to break their way out of here. That kills this cell. That cell dies. And they're going to make their way out of this cell and go find more cells. There's plenty of cells in your body. This cell happens to go into your lungs. This coronavirus goes into your lungs. It finds cells in your lungs and starts making more of itself. It does one more thing. What it does is tells the cell not only to make pieces of itself, but to make phlegm or think of it as snot. Okay, I'll say it. Think of it as snot. This cell is going to produce a chemical that gets released, and it fills your lungs full of this goo so that you can't breathe. And people that get the coronavirus cannot breathe. It's that bad, folks. So it kills this cell. All of these cells, all of these viruses now get out, and they go find other cells. And then they infect that cell, make more of it, and then break out. And then those hundreds of viruses get out and go to more places, more cells, and more cells, and more cells, and more cells. You see how dangerous these things are? The flu virus does the same thing. The cold virus does the same thing. The thing is, they don't do it, and they're not as deadly. So these things produce this goo that's in your lungs, just like the cold virus, just like the flu virus. And then what that does is it makes you cough. And when you cough, it takes some of that goo and sends it out into the air. When it goes out into the air, it takes some of these viruses with it. So they're carried around in these, remember, they're super small, carried around in these little teeny droplets that will land on something. You touch it, you put it in your eye, or if you're walking by somebody where you're within 6 feet, you breathing in these little droplets of water that carry these viruses into your nose, into your mouth, into your eye. And these are ways for those viruses to get into your body. Do you see now why it's important to wear a mask? Masks will stop those droplets of water that are out here. You can't see them. They're small. But those droplets, when people breathe, just breathing and talking, and these masks will help protect some of that from coming in. Not really, though. That's why you keep your 6 feet. What these things protect is when you're breathing in and out or coughing, this stops those droplets from coming out. So if you're around people that are not wearing a mask, and they have this virus, and sometimes this virus, they may not even look like they're sick. People are what's called asymptomatic. They don't even show the virus, signs of the virus. They can be walking around breathing and talking and letting these little droplets come out. And if they don't have a mask on, they're not protecting you from the virus. So I don't want to talk too much longer about this, but I'm telling you, this is serious stuff, okay? So if you don't wear a mask outside, you could be affecting other people. If other people around you are not wearing a mask, get away from them. If there's other kids in your class that are not wearing a mask, tell the teacher. All right? It's extremely important that we wear these masks because these little viruses are small. You don't see them. All right? You got to keep yourself safe because this stuff, the stuff that's going on in this picture is going on inside somebody who gets affected by this virus. And you don't want those little viruses in you. All right? So there'll be instructions for what you need to do from this video, but that's kind of the really, really shortened version of what happens with this virus. Okay, I want you guys to know about that. All right, that's all. And make sure you wear your mask 6 feet apart from other people.